give me one shot here on a blue chip stock, believe me, Kevin, the only problem you're gonna have is that you didn't buy more.
Nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in circles.
What's going on, NBA Draft fans? Your boys are back. The Wolves of Ball Street, your favorite draft analyst. It's your guys from the NBA Draft Show on the No Ceilings NBA podcast feed. My name is Corey Tulaba, and I am here as always with my co-host, Albert Garbage Time Gim. Albert, what's popping, man?
A lot is going on. I'm really excited. You know what, Corey, really quickly, I'm sorry I'm kind of breaking up the flow here right now, but every time, like, we do the same intro literally every single episode, and right before you ask me, like, Albert, how are you doing? It's this weird thing where I have to burp, like, right as you're about to ask me. So I'm always, like, in this conundrum. Do I, like, mute myself really quickly to burp it? But anyway, no one cares about my burping stuff, but it's great to be back. We haven't done a pod like this forever. We had one of our subscribers call us lazy, Corey, for not doing a prospect breakdown recently. So I feel locked and loaded. I feel ready. I prepared so much for this episode because I want to absolutely destroy whoever said that we were lazy, because we're never lazy. We're always grinding. We want to give you guys premium content. But here we go. I'm really excited for this one, and we're talking about two really exciting prospects.
That's that chip on your shoulder.
There it is.
Just stacking chips. Just stacking chips out here. Shout out to everybody watching along with us live, everybody in the chat. If you're not in the chat, come through, say what's up, and you know, contribute to the show. It'll be fun. Today we are going to cover a couple of really fun prospects, and as Gregory Castillo says in the chat, let's go white guy scouting special. So we're covering Johnny Furphy from Kansas and Dalton Knecht from Tennessee tonight. And we're going to start it out with Kansas freshman wing Johnny Furphy, who has come on as a one and done prospect when nobody, was really certain that would be the case. But he is from Melbourne, Australia, 6'9", 202 pounds, 19 and a half years old on draft night. Currently playing 22.8 minutes per game, averaging 9 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 0.9 assists to 0.6 turnovers, 0.9 steals, 0.2 blocks, shooting 50.6% from the field, 36.9% from three on 3.6 attempts a game, 77.1% from the free throw line, 65.1 true shooting percentage, 61.9% effective field goal, 18.4 PER, and a BPM of 8. Was not listed on the DraftDAC IPO, but currently ESPN has him at 23. No Ceilings has him at 13. We just released a big board today. Go check that out when you get a chance. Bleacher Report has him at 18. Yahoo had him at 29. The Ringer does not yet have him listed. Tankathon has him at 16. Average stock price of 24. He was at 50 on the February draft rankings, because he wasn't listed on a couple of the accounts at that point. But right now, stock price at 24. So as always, Albert, is Johnny Furphy stock price too high, too low, or is it just right?
I think for where we're at right now, I think it's okay. I personally have him. So in our latest update, I have him at 11. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little bit higher on Furphy than, the consensus, but that's okay. Right. Like, we're, as you mentioned, like someone like the Ringer, right. They probably haven't updated theirs in a little bit.
Yeah.
So changes are coming, and I think his stock will continue to go up across the board. But yeah, so considering that, I'm okay with that number, but just for me personally, I have him higher than that.
Yeah, I have him higher than that as well. I think I had him at maybe 13 or 14 on the board that we submitted, because like 6'9" guys who are athletic and can score without the ball in their hands are a valuable archetype in the modern NBA. And he's got real athleticism, and he looks huge out on the court. He's physical. He's aggressive. There's a lot to like with Johnny Furphy. So with that said, where do you want to start with his game?
Offense is good. somewhere on the offensive side because
Definitely on the offensive side of the ball.
yeah. I mean, we could do the shooting. We could do a
Yeah.
lot of things with him. I mean, honestly, his game is not like crazy, complex, but
Yeah.
the shooting is a good place to start.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's a pretty versatile off-ball shooter. Like I think he's pretty active with movement. He's got a high release, shooting like 43% on unguarded catch and shoot shots. So that's a good number. Can shoot it a little bit off movement. Started out really hot. It's kind of, come back down to earth and kind of leveled everything out. As far as his shooting goes, I think sometimes he's like a little bit slow to get it off, which leads to some heavily contested shots. I've seen him get a shot blocked. I think that he also sometimes, like on his release, he does like the Amen Thompson point in a weird direction on his follow through. And then like when he has a contest, like, and he feels rushed a little bit, he has like a weird leg flare thing. And I think those two things kind of throw off his rhythm on misses at times, but the shot's pretty. I think that it's going to translate. I mean, he's shooting 77% on free throws, which is not like awesome, but it's also not 71%. Like, it's closer to 80 than not. So, I think he's a good shooter, and I think that him having that skill has been really valuable for Kansas in that they've been able to, use him and an off-ball threat that, is pretty easy to fit into any kind of roster construction because he's, pretty big.
Yeah. No, Corey, I love everything that you said. I mean, currently on that Kansas team with the roster that they have, they're asking him to be a strong play finisher. And it's kind of what he's doing right now. And he's doing a good job. He's on a little bit of a cold streak. I think he's 5 for his last 15 from 3. That BYU game was especially rough to watch. And Corey, I will say, with what you said about the whole Amen Thompson thing and his shooting in general, watching that BYU game was a little bit interesting because he missed his first 4 threes. And then on his last one, he was pretty open on it, or maybe it was his 4th one, but you could see him kind of aim his jumper a little bit. And it's something that Clyde Frazier talks a lot about shooters when, they kind of lose their confidence. And I think with Furphy in that game, especially that BYU one, it was a rough game. They were losing. And then you could see that he had lost his confidence a little bit with his outside jumper. You could see him aim it a little bit. And so with Furphy, I think keeping that confidence high, keeping that focus high with him is going to be really important. And it's something that I was reading online. I think it was Swish Theory. They put out a new piece on Furphy actually today or yesterday. And I apologize. I forget who the writer was, but he was talking about how Furphy is another one of these guys that's gone through like a huge growth spurt. I think he's grown like a full foot in the last couple of years, which is huge, right? And he's up to 6'9" now. And must be nice. But with him watching, I think there's still some and Corey, this is your specialty, but there are some kinesthetic things with him that the writer was talking about. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting because you can see that he's developing in, like the connective part of, his upper body, lower body, and all that stuff kind of being in rhythm, especially, when he's like shooting off movement, off dribble and stuff like that. So I am a believer in the shot. I think it looks pretty good. Clearly, he has some things to tighten up that you kind of went over, but I think confidence is going to be a big thing for him. And I like how Bill Self and Kentucky are using him right now, mostly as a play finisher, playing off of guys like, Dickinson and those guys to kind of get clean looks. And one thing that I wanted to add with him is that he, in my opinion, I think he does a pretty good job of leveraging some of that shooting gravity. With his off-ball movement. Some of the cuts with him are truly fantastic. Something I wrote in my notes here is he's a real zone buster, a guy that knows where to be, and not just in terms of his outside shooting, but knowing how to read the defense, knowing to see where the help is, knowing to see where the eyes of the defenders are, and like being really reactive with that and making really nice cuts to the basket for easy looks. One of the other games really quickly, Corey, I know I'm kind of talking a lot right here, but there was a game, I think it was the Texas game. He took 11 free throws that game, went 9 for 11 from the free throw line, which he's not doing that every single game, but you like to see games like that where it kind of speaks to, you know, he's understanding that he can't just, you know, stand in the corner and shoot threes all day. And he's not that type of guy. There is an aggression and a toughness to him. And so having a game like that where he takes 11 free throws, I think is super valuable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he had 16 points on 3 shots or something crazy like that. Like, you know, his potential to be efficient, as like you said, as a play finisher, is awesome. It's completely awesome, and you know, I love his ability to cut, shooting 80% on cuts, but just overall near the rim in general, he's been terrific. He's 81.5% overall at the rim, and then he's even better in the half court. He's 83.3% in the half court. So. He's super athletic. He's physical. And I think that, one, he runs hard as hell in transition. So he generates like early offense that is highly efficient. But he also does a really good job of like attacking the rim with force and not going up soft. And like he beats guys to the rim a lot of the time. So he's making these sharp cuts and these smart cuts. But then he's also doing his part by like, you know, playing really physical basketball and attacking it like he wants to dunk everything. So yeah, I love his finishing. He's up to 12 dunks in the half court, which is pretty good. Mm-hmm. And clearly that size is really important. Like, even though he's frail and he looks like a little boy, like literally like a child, because he's got a baby face. Like, I think that you know, he doesn't play that way. He jumps off 1 or 2 feet, and I think that's, you know, something that good finishers can do. They're not just, you know, they don't have to jump off 2 or off 1. He can get up off either way. And he can finish with either hand. So like, yeah, he's got like the dunks and whatnot, but he also has, you know, some pretty decent touch, finishing with either hand. And he can do like the same foot, same hand, you know, kind of throw defenders off and create like angles for himself near the rim. And, you know, I don't think he's like you know, we're talking about him in the sense of a play finisher. That's what he is, and that's what he projects to be, at least very early on in his NBA career. But he's not like a total spaz with the ball in his hand. So like, if he does get the ball in transition, like, he's not going to dribble the ball off of his foot, right? So I like that, like, you can project him to fit into kind of any offense because he doesn't need his ball, you know, the ball in his hands to succeed. So whether it is him, you know, playing off the ball as a shooter, or him, you know, generating looks for himself near the rim, I think either way, he finds ways to be effective and efficient as a scorer. And that's what you want from your ancillary pieces. Yeah, no, 100%, Corey. I think the thing with him that's interesting, when I was in my notes talking about his handle, I wrote Honda Accord 2006. It gets the job done. I wrote about that in my piece as well. But it's just, you know, he knows how to get from point A to point B. Doesn't have a panoramic, you know, sunroof and heated seats or whatever, but gets the job done, right? He's not Kyrie Irving. He's not Darius Garland. You know, he's good enough. And also, he's not Karl Anthony Towns, who's been an absolute nightmare this season with his turnover rate and stuff. But it, you know, like, I like it a lot. It's really interesting with him where, Corey, like, as you mentioned, the size is a big thing. Like, he looks legitimately 6'9", but something that I did write in my notes when, you know, watching his drives to the rim, sometimes, because, as you mentioned, Corey, he is frail and he needs to develop some of that upper body. Sometimes, due to the lack of like a really, really tight handle and some strength issues, there were a couple drives to the basket where it did get a little messy, where he, you know, he lost balance because he got pushed off a little bit, got pushed off, you know, his path, and, you know, kind of lost his way there a little bit because the handle's not super tight. But at the same time, what are we talking about, right? With Johnny Furphy, I don't think any NBA front office exec is like, hey, I need you to come in and be Paul George. Not going to happen. No one in their right mind would ever consider that. So if we're looking right now, especially early on in his career, 6'9", play finisher, as you mentioned, right? Tons of early offense stuff that you could do with him.
running in transition, flaring out for threes, etc. Like it's a lot of fun stuff with him. So I did want to mention, and Corey, with what you said too, good left-hand finisher. Some of them, honestly, I'll say this: I like his left-hand finishing. Some looked kind of like lucky to me. I'm like, hey, how did that go in? But
Better
still,
be lucky than
overall,
good sometimes.
true. That's exactly right. But overall, really good. And he does look really young. I love what Gregory Castillo said in our comments here. He's like, look somewhere between Sunshine from Remember the Titans and a TikTok / streamer. Who can forget Sunshine? But yeah, he's Furphy's looks really young. He's still growing into his body, as I mentioned, but he's got a toughness to him. I don't know if it's like an Australian thing, Joe Ingles, Andrew Bogut, whatever. Like these guys just like to be tough and gritty. Also, shout out to Patty Mills today. Just signed, who did he sign with? The Heat, right? Am I chirping? I forget.
I missed that news.
Yeah. I think it was the Heat. I might be out of my mind. But no, I'm with you, Corey. There's a lot to like about him, but we also have to kind of temper what we're looking at, right? We're not looking at some dude to be your number one, number two, maybe not even number three option. So with that in mind, there's a lot to like.
How many ISOs do you think he has on the year?
I'm gonna say, this is my guess. I'm not looking. Truly, 7. Is that too high?
Okay. That is too high.
Oh.
Synergy has given him 0 isolations.
0.
Yeah,
that was way too high.
0 isolations. But it just goes to show, like, his role is very much so not to be that guy. His role is to be a play finisher, and that is what he's doing. And he's been successful in doing that, and when we talk about like the handle, like, look, he needs to do a couple of things with the ball in his hands. He needs to be able to dribble the ball in transition and finish, and he needs to be able to come off a DHO and use that momentum to get downhill and attack. He's got 13 pick and roll ball handling possessions this year, according to Synergy, and of which he's shooting 54% on. He's been able to like do like a 1 or 2 dribble pull up off of that like a couple of times. There's some times where he doesn't quite have the timing, the cadence down with that. So it's not something where you would project him to be doing on a consistent basis. But like David Loretti in the comments says like Furphy would look good on the Grizzlies, in a team like that, when you have a guy who just needs to be out on the wing, complimenting your stars, filling in the gaps. Like, that's the kind of player offensively that I think Johnny Furphy could be. So his game is easy to enjoy because there's beauty in the simplicity of it.
True. That's the Zaire correction is what he's referring to.
Yeah. Well, they've been trying to correct that, David Rodney, Jake LaRavia, they've been, and so they're struggling. It's a spot there. And Gigi, maybe it's Gigi, could be Gigi Jackson. I think, like you said, it's his offensive game isn't really that complicated, right? Like,
good passer.
Yeah, but not great, right? Like,
exactly.
Positive assisted to assist turnover ratio, but like not a guy that's going to be like somebody that you're going to be like, hey, did you see House of Highlights when Johnny Furphy made that weak side whip hit, Trae Young, Luka Doncic type pass? Like that's not what his game is about. But if he can make a connective pass, then I think you got everything you want out of him, right?
I mean, the highest praise, Corey, I think we can give him as a passer is good connective guy. Like, he moves the ball well, pretty smart. He's not 1, 2, first, second, third creator ever. But as you mentioned, Corey, maybe in a pinch, he can run a little pick and roll. Probably not though, but can make little quick passes. But we're going to say it for the millionth time this pod with him, but he's a play finisher right now, and how he develops is up to him. We can't predict the future, but where he's at right now and what you're drafting him for is not that. It's just going to be to be a play finisher, floor spacer type of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about the other side of the court, right? What do you like or dislike about his defense?
I like how long he is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have a ton of praise for him. But I like how long he is. I like how competitive he is. He's got all the, you know, freshman young guy mistakes in his bag, right? Like sometimes he'll get lost ball watching, sometimes he's late on the help, blah blah blah. I don't want to crucify him for that stuff because he's what, 19, right? So don't want to freak out. But to be honest, Corey, I'll say this. I wasn't like disappointed after watching him on defense. I was like, oh, you know, he competes. He's long enough. Does he have things to work on? Yeah. Does he have to bulk up? For sure. But I like the height and I like the length and I like the competitive level with him. So that's kind of like the brunt of my analysis with him on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, I don't think he's a complete disaster. He tries hard. You know, he gives good effort, and I think he stays pretty locked in. So, like, I think that it's a good base to work with. And like you said, he's really big and he's long, and like, there's just a difference. Like, if he was 6'3" and kind of questionable defense versus he's 6'9". So he at least has the physical tools that you want out of that kind of prospect. And I think he is like a capable defender. That's not to say that he's a good defender, but I think he's capable of being one because I think he's good at moving his feet on the perimeter. Like, I think he's willing to take it in the chest, even if sometimes, a guy can move him off his spot. I think he's willing to, embrace the physicality. But I think that where he gets into trouble on the defensive side of the ball is that he gives defenders or offensive players a little bit too much space, and he plays them flat. And when you play somebody flat, especially if you're giving them space on the perimeter with like a court as big as an NCAA court and potentially an NBA court down the line, you're just giving guys a chance to dictate the possession. They can go left, they can go right. You're not doing much in the way to prevent them from doing what they would like to do. And then you also leave yourself susceptible to like getting hit by a screen. Like he just very rarely will get up into his shirt and take away space and make things difficult. And so when he does, defend, like, yeah, he's got the lateral quickness to stay with the guy and beat him to a spot. But eventually when you're letting them dictate the entire possession, they'll get the advantage at some point. So, but that's coachable.
Yeah.
And it's fixable. And I think that's the good thing with him. And then he also rebounds the shit out of the ball.
Exactly.
And he ends the defensive possessions. And like, that's a really important skill to bring to the court. So like, I think he's capable. I think he's going to get there. Dirty Dancer in the chat says, I want to compare Furphy to Trey Murphy, but unfortunately defense exists. That is a true statement. And that is a name that I think a lot of people have thrown around for Furphy. I know Metcalf has mentioned him being a guy that he compares him to. And as far as NBA comps, I've really struggled to come up with a comp for Furphy. I'm usually pretty good at like, finagling comps. But I've struggled with Furphy.
I have a couple. Are we going to wait for later or should
No, let's do it now.
Okay. I have a couple. It's funny. Also, I did want to say really quickly, shout out to Dirty Dancer, Gregory Castillo, Mr. Ray, Mr. Jones. You guys are always rocking with us and joining us for these live streams. Really appreciate you guys always. And I just wanted to say thanks. But no, I get a Dirty Dancer, but I actually wrote down Trey Murphy because I was like, well, Trey Murphy was a guy who came, was drafted later on. He wasn't drafted after his first year. Maybe Furphy becomes a better defender in his, second, third year. So there could be a connection there just because of size and shooting, whatever. So I wrote down Trey Murphy. Also wrote down Mike Miller. I get it. White shooter, whatever. But, obviously different body types too. Even Mike Miller, like when he was young on the Magic, was a little bit beefier than Furphy is right now, but still wanted to throw that out there. The last one is I had to do it just because it's me. But I know this guy's a little bit smaller than Furphy. He's like maybe 2-3 inches smaller than Furphy, but in terms of like role, what he'll end up being, plus the athleticism, had to write down Brent Barry, man. Brent Barry, a guy who was in a slam dunk contest. He had a season with the Sonics where he had averaged like 14 a game. I actually went and watched a couple of games of Brent Berry yesterday just in preparation of the pod. And I was like, I could see it, man. Brent Berry was who he was, a guy who was a lights out shooter. I was looking up his stats before, Corey. I'm doing this. I don't have it in front of me, but I think there was one season where Brent Berry shot like 58 or 59% from the field, which was really good. And he was like over 40%. Just a rock solid NBA player. I think he played like 15 seasons. Furphy could be that type of guy, also 2-time champ. So maybe Furphy ends up becoming a contributor to a really good, contending team as an outside shooter with some athleticism was kind of where my thought process went.
Chicago Bulls legend.
Many teams.
I think the difference with Brent Berry is that he was a way better passer and playmaker. Sure. But I think if you take that out of it, I actually kind of like the Brent Berry comp. I think that's a fun one. I was trying to think not necessarily one-to-one comps and who is he's exactly like necessarily, but somebody who I think he would play a similar role to in the NBA. I thought maybe like a little bit like Keegan Murray with the Kings. Like obviously not like the Iowa version of Keegan who was dominating on the court, but like, a guy who is more of a play finisher. He runs off movement a little bit. He gets out in transition, plays a lot of spot up, off the ball, cuts to the hoop, keeps the game simple. Nothing really super flashy. Keegan's got a little bit more self-creation to his bag, but like that's not necessarily 100% his game at this point of his career for Sacramento. But big, strong dude. That was really the only one, but I'm not in love with it. I like the Brent Berry one though, as far as some of the ancillary stuff that he does outside of the playmaking. But he's also bigger. He's like a couple inches taller than Brent Berry too.
Yeah. But also, Corey, this is what we do, right? We're every time we come up with these comps, it's kind of a chemistry type of thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I think a good mix of all the guys we've mentioned might be Johnny Furphy. Hopefully, right? Like if he has a Brent Berry type of career, plays that long, and wins a couple titles, that'd be great for him. So,
be amazing.
Yeah.
Right. That's that'd be the
maybe
dream.
I'm underselling it.
All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll come out on the other side and we'll break down Dalton Knecht. All right, we're back. Like we never left to break down our second white guy of the day, Dalton Knecht from Tennessee, 6'6", 213, 23.17 years old on draft night, playing 29.6 minutes per game, averaging 20.6 points per game, 4.9 rebounds per game, 1.9 assists to 1.5 turnovers, 0.7 steals, 0.7 blocks, shooting 47.8% from the floor, 40.2% from three on 5.7 attempts per game, 75.9% from the line on nearly 6 attempts per game, 59% true shooting, 55.6 effective field goal percentage, PER of 25.2, BPM of 11.2. Preseason, Dalton Knecht's stock price, not what it is now. ESPN had him at 88 in their top 100. No ceilings. He came in at 48. Bleacher Report at 39. Yahoo didn't have him ranked. The Athletic had him at 26. Tankathon didn't have him ranked. He was the 46th ranked prospect on the Draft Deck IPO with an average stock of 50.8. Currently, ESPN has put him at 13. No ceilings has him at 11. Bleacher Report has him at 17. Yahoo has him at 12. The Ringer has him at 15. Tankathon has him at 17. Average stock price of 11.7. 14th on the February draft rankings. So at 11.7, Albert, is Dalton Knecht's stock price too high, too low, or is it just right?
I think, Corey, I'm going to say it's just right. And I feel like I've been doing that a lot recently. I don't know, but it's just, I think it's the nature of this class too. I've had so many conversations with people about this class, Corey, with you as well. Just it's getting really hard just because there's so much like we're looking at so much variance and literally a lower level of talent, just to be totally honest, and it becomes really hard to kind of split those ends and figure out, where you want to end up with these guys. But I have Connect at 7,
Mhm.
and that's where I landed. I feel great about it, but also I feel I don't know, like I think 11.7 is just fine because I could see that too. I could see someone having him at 18, and I wouldn't be like, you're an idiot either. Not to say that I think there's a huge variance in his game, but this is just one of those classes. And for our purposes, Corey, I know you have him even higher than I do, from what I understand. Or I might be wrong, but I have him at 7, so I feel like it's okay.
No, I think I have him at 8. I think right now.
Oh,
But to be completely fair, I definitely have had a little bit of like, should I just put him in the top 5? Like, I've had that thought in my mind, and I get that he's gonna be 23 on draft night, and I understand all of the things, but like, this kid is good at basketball. He's really good at basketball. So like, to me, in this particular class, like, I think if you are going to have him in like the 18 to 25 range or whatever, I think it's probably just overthinking it, to be completely honest. I think that's what it is. I think that, he offers like NBA skills. He's got a real NBA frame. I mean, he's doing this on a Tennessee team that people were skeptical, because this is not the kind of offensive player that usually thrives in Tennessee's system, and he's been dominant. I mean, he's averaging over 20 points a game. I think he's at like 25 points per game in conference play, something crazy like that. I mean, he's legitimately athletic, not like sneaky athletic or anything like that. Like, he will straight up punch it on you. He's a 3-level scorer. He's good, man. He's good. So I think personally, even at an average price of 11.7, I think that's too low.
Yeah,
I think it's too low in this class. Maybe if it was a different class, I get it, and I understand, how age plays a factor in his upside. Maybe isn't as high as somebody who's 18. I get that. This is not lost on me, right? Like, but he's like, this dude's had like multiple 39-point games this year. Like, he's averaging over 20 points per game in the SEC. Like, he's the kid can hoop. So I'm all in. I will buy the stock.
No, I mean, really quickly, Corey, he had 39 against Auburn. Great game. An absolute killer of a scorer, as you mentioned, Corey. And yeah, I mean, 5th-year senior, I get it. Came from junior college in Northern Colorado, whatever. But you turn the tape on, you're like, okay, he can just score from everywhere. And guess what? That's valuable in the NBA. And he's not 6'3" or 6'2" doing it. He's legitimate, 6'7", 6'8"? How tall? Oh, 6'6", right? But look at the frame.
Long.
Exactly. Athletic. We'll get into the office before I get into the nitty gritty, but I just wanted to piggyback everything that you're saying, Corey. I think in this class, with that type of offensive talent, it's hard to keep him out of the top 10, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like, I know he like kind of came out of nowhere a little bit, but like, dude, I watched him against Weber State last year, and I was like, yo, who is this dude? He is cooking Weber State. Like, so he was somebody that, the No Ceilings, I think, was pretty early on. Definitely shout out to Maxwell for covering him, and No Stearns Unturned. I was pretty high on him coming into the year as well. It's because it's like, some guys you just watch it and you're like, that's going to work. I didn't think it was going to work to this extent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody did, but like, he's running with the opportunity that he's getting.
Yeah. And Corey, everyone right now in the chat's talking about, where he might end up. And God, just imagining him on like a contender next year, maybe even like as like a bench scorer or whatever, is really interesting. Or even he ends up on like a bad team and he's just like, hey, go out there and score a bunch for us is exciting. So I'm excited to talk about his game because there are real layers to his game that we need to get into.
All right, let's talk about it. I'm assuming we're, as we usually do, and with Dalton in particular, I think it's the right place to start. Talking about his shooting. So talk to me about what you saw out of the shot with the film.
First thing I want to say, Corey, aesthetically, not my favorite jump shot. I personally don't think it's the prettiest jump shot. I don't know what it is, right? I'm not going to get into the mechanics of it. I don't know exactly why. I don't love how it looks, but
yeah,
I've been wrong with that before. I didn't like how Tyrese Halliburton shot the ball. Look how that freaking exploded in my face. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Look how I turned out with that take. Clearly I was wrong about that because it went in all the time. So maybe I should have focused more on that. Aesthetically, I like the Reed Shepherd jumper better than Dalton, but Dalton, it goes in a ton. He's shooting 40% on threes. I think currently, let's see, he's taking how many he's almost taking 6 a game, 40%. He's had some really good ones against Auburn, 1 5 for 8, against A&M 4 for 9, 3 for 6 against Missouri. He had a cold night against Alabama the other night, 1 for 7. But just I like how the shot looks. I like that he's taking them off the dribble, off movement, hands in his face. He is the guy that defenses are keying in on, right? Every team is throwing their best defender at Dalton Knecht, trying to make his life hell every single night, and he's shooting 40% from 3. I think that means something, right? We talk about shooting, Corey. We talk about, okay, there are some guys who have really high percentages, but all their shots are coming off of wide open looks in the corner, right? That's not Dalton Knecht. He's a guy who's handling the ball a ton. Big usage with him. He's shooting it from all over the court. And as a 3-point shooter, just talking about the 3-point shooting, he's doing it, as I mentioned, right? Off the catch, off movement, off of screens, off of pin downs, everything. It's been great to watch, right? So it may not be the prettiest aesthetic shot that I love, but plenty good, man. And I have no problem with the shooting at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not like he doesn't look like Clay or Reed Shepherd. He doesn't have like the perfect like balance in his base and like have like the perfect elbow 90-degree angle bend, but like he shoots a consistent ball. It's a high release. He's got great follow through, and he can shoot with power without like elevating a ton.
Yes.
And he does it without having that like one motion shot that like Trae Young has, and that's why Trae is able to pull up from 40 because he generates so much power with the ball like a catapult. Like Dalton really doesn't have that, and he's still able to shoot it with range. But yeah, like he shoots it at multiple levels. Like he's got the mid-range bag. Deadly when left open too. And when we're talking about him as a guy who is going to be playing off of star NBA players potentially, he's 50% on unguarded threes right now. That's pretty good. But yeah, he flies off screens, like he can come off flares. So he's more than just a spot up guy. Like you can use him and he'll even like come off movement and get to his spot in the mid range where he can then, kind of operate and post you and get to the little like mid post fadeaway that he utilizes. He shoots it off when he does the little mid range fader, like he can go over either shoulder. Most guys, most righties prefer to shoot it, a certain way, and he's able to go either way. So like he's versatile in how he's a really, really good, really deadly scorer that I think is just going to be a flamethrower playing off guys in the league. And then you add in the fact that he can also shoot it off the bounce, and it's like, oh, like this dude's gonna be a problem potentially like down the line.
There was one game, Corey, they were playing against Kentucky, and Reeves and Fierro were like all over him, and he was just eating it up. Like he embraced all of the contact, embraced all of the different things that they were trying to do and throw at him, and just to see I mean, this is his first year playing for like, Tennessee, right? A high major program. And like, to see him doing this pretty like he just seems like he belongs, which is I think important, right? Like we're not talking about mechanics or numbers here. Like he just looks like a guy who's been there, done that, feels really comfortable, does not care what you're throwing at him. He's kind of ready for it all.
Yeah.
And in a class like this, you should be taking a guy like that pretty high, especially because he's shooting it in all the different ways that we mentioned, but also like he's embracing the moment. He's embracing the opportunity. He's not shaken by any of it. And he's playing, in these big time SEC games, he's showing up for almost every single game. And he's putting up big numbers, taking on the huge offensive burden. As you mentioned, scoring from all three levels. A lot of fun, dude. Just so much fun.
Yeah. And the consistency that you touched on is not easy. It's not easy to be consistent. And he's been really consistent putting that orange thing through the other orange thing. Also a good finisher, so not just a shooter, right? Like he is at, let's see, 61% at the rim overall. He is 58.1% in the half court. So like finishes at the cup, athletic, will put you on a poster. He's got 21 dunks on the year. He absorbs contact, he finishes through contact. I feel like his touch is like okay. Like doesn't have like the jelly, like high off the glass all the time. But he's long and he uses like extension finishes, like he can Euro, like he's got the same foot, same hand stuff. The fact that he can also effectively finish, and like I think it's something that is going to be translatable again. Like it's just another tipping the cap to him and him as a scoring prospect.
Yeah, Corey, just with his finishing though, something that I wrote here, I really like really nice long strides going to the rim. I really like that a lot. And you see that with some of you see those where he's like getting into the lane, 2-step, and then he's like, it's still not all the way at the cup, so he'll do like a little fade to the side and it looks really nice. Kind of reminds you of some NBA guys who do that. Really good at protecting the ball, as you mentioned, Euro steps. He's good with that like high gather, right? Where he like kind of gathers it above the defender's head. Does a good job with that. As you've already mentioned, the combo of athleticism plus embracing and finishing through the contact is really good. I think he takes some really savvy angles to the basket as well. But just a guy who it's this thing, right, Corey, where he's thinking through the defense, but not in like a mechanical, robotic way. He's truly reading and reacting and doing that at a high level and at a pretty quick speed. So I like all of it. And some of his left-hand finishes pretty good too. And also he's got these little hesitations, some of the rip stuff, some of the head fake, hezzy stuff that he's got, which is really, really effective and gets him going to the rim. So not just a shooter, man. He's got some real levels to him on the offensive side of the ball.
He does. And I think that, if we talk about how he utilizes like and leverages the threat of his shot to make plays for his teammates, like he is not going to be, he's not like a super high level creator, but he's pretty good. And I feel like he's consistently getting better and making better reads out of the pick and roll. And then like he's a threat to score in the post. So then like he can make plays out of the post as well. Like I think he's shown some high level playmaking, especially in the pick and roll. And he's like big and strong and long, and you can see over the top. He's not going to be Luka, like he's not even, Sam Merrill, in college on the court as a passer, but like he is adequate enough that like you don't have to worry about him being a total non-threat and missing guys that are open and I think forcing the issue. And I think at the next level where he is, maybe doesn't have as high a usage and he's playing more of like that ancillary role, where he's attacking off the second side or off a closeout, and like there's more space and guys are ready to shoot, like, and there's athletic bigs near the rim that he can kind of just throw it up to. Like, I think that he is going to be more than fine as a playmaker. And I mean, shoot, if Zach LaVine can learn how to average, 4.5, 5 assists a game, then I think Dalton's going to be just fine based off what he's already shown. And, positive assist to turnover ratio, which is a good sign. So like, I think his feel is good. I think as an offensive player, like he has had as good a season as anybody could have possibly projected on him.
Yeah. No, Corey, just really quickly, just the last thing I'll say with his passing, just to piggyback off of what you said, it was against Arkansas. Second side, pick and roll, right? They're playing aggressive in the drop, and he just threw this really nice pass over the top to the big man who slipped the screen. It was really pretty, really nice stuff, right? Something like that isn't maybe the most advanced, craziest pass we'll ever see, but the fact that he has that in his bag at all, I think speaks to the type of offensive influence that he's had for this Tennessee team, right? If he was a black hole that couldn't pass at all, I think things would look really different this year. But he has been able to make good reads. He has been able to make the right plays when it's needed. He's not always going to make the craziest pass, right? But he can make good passes. He can, make the right basketball play in the right moments. And I think that's the type of stuff you're looking for where, with the NBA front office execs, you're looking for winning players, right? And so for Dalton in the role that he's in, if he's making winning plays, then that's interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Shout out to Mr. Ray. His form reminds me a bit of Karl Anthony Towns. Limited lift, mechanics look the exact same every time. I think it's an interesting, comp for his form for sure. All right, now let's move over to the other side of the ball. I mean, we can sit and compliment Dalton all day as a tough shot maker who's, been just giving people buckets all season long.
Yeah.
But it's a two-way game, and I think this is the side of the ball where people have questions. Is what I would say.
Corey, I could start. The first thing I want to say is, there are some moments where he really struggles to stay in front of people. A lot of different reasons for that, right? I think, and to be fair to him, the offensive load that he's carrying is insane, right, for this Tennessee team. So definitely. I want to throw that caveat in there, right? However, I mean, his footwork is not the best. I think he's not even as good as Furphy in terms of his lateral movement. There's some real galloping going on with him at times. That's kind of rough. Doesn't always get into a stance. Once again, fatigue could be a part of it as well. He sometimes gets just demolished by screens, and it's just like, sometimes it's like, have you never seen a screen before? How did that guy just, send you into another dimension? With some of the screen navigation with him isn't always the best. But I will say there are more moments though. Wow, Mormons. There are some moments though when he competes. He it's not like he's completely not trying out there, or he's like the worst defender on planet Earth. It's just that defense is just not his strength right now. I want to be as objective as possible. I had a scout tell me, he was like, I think he has no idea what he's doing on the court at times. Something that I noticed with him is he also can get caught ball watching a little bit. And it's like, hey, wouldn't love that as much, considering how smart and savvy you can be on the offensive side of the ball without the ball. So, defense is not his strength. No. But I don't want to say he's the worst defender I've seen either. He's not. God, who was the prospect that you hated when we did his breakdown? I'm trying to remember.
There's only one.
Was it the Ohio State kid? Was it? I don't remember. Anyway,
it was Malachi Branham.
That's right.
I think I classified him as the worst defender in the draft.
I don't think Knecht is Branham, but Knecht has some work to do on this side, Corey.
Yeah, but he's also way bigger than a guy like Branham too.
Correct.
And again, like that physicality, that length is a good starting point, and is just the physical tools are just better. A better
foundation to build on. Yeah.
Foundation to give you more room for error.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the problem with his movement sometimes, like defensively, I don't think he plays defense with the same confidence that he plays offense with, right? Sure. So he's a little more tentative. He's not willing to be a disruptive guy on the, or I don't know if not, he's not willing, but he hasn't shown to be like a super disruptive guy on the ball, getting into guys, having active hands, making them think, making him, them feel his presence defensively, right? He gives guys space, and I think he's got like tight hips.
Yeah.
Some
topping.
Yeah, and maybe not quite as bad as Obi's or as tight as Obi's, because Obi was like super narrow too.
Yeah.
But I think it affects his ability to just like get loose a little bit, almost like Filipowski, where like he can, Flip can move a little bit, but like his physical capabilities just are what they are. But I think he's going to be fine on wings.
Mm-hmm.
Like guys that are around his size, just because I think he's strong. I think he's long, and I think he'll do an adequate enough job. I'm worried about him against quicker guards on switches. And, I think those kind of players are going to give him some issues for sure. You talked about his screening. I think he struggles to get skinny. I think he kind of struggles to defend movement guys when he has to like chase them around, and he's got obstacles in his way. But there are some positives too. Like he's got good length, so like even when he does get beat, sometimes he's able to recover. Get his hands on some balls. He's not a disruptor. It's not going to be the best aspect of his game, but if you can insulate him in a system, with other good defenders, I don't think he is going to break down your entire defense eventually. As a rookie, maybe. I think he'll struggle like most rookies do, but eventually when it's time, when he's 26, I think he'll find a way to survive. Yeah, as Dirty Dancer says, I was literally going to say the same thing. If Duncan Robinson can learn to defend, can too.
Duncan Robinson's learned a lot of things in the NBA. So
yeah, did you see
I know.
Wassar.
It was sick. Everyone on social media was like, "What the hell happened?"
I know, he looks like the Nasus on that play.
What a comp!
Everybody's doing that now.
I know
that little baseline behind the back.
It works though. Pretty sick.
It works. Duncan Robinson's cooking. He's figured some stuff out. But like you put Dalton in like Orlando.
Yeah.
Not only would he be sick like as a floor spacer, and he fits like their big lineup, but like I think they have defenders there that can kind of protect him a little bit, right? Like OKC, they've got guys who can kind of help him a little bit. So he is not such a lost cause that there are not going to be good situations for him where he is going to be a travesty on that end. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's the simple answer is he'll be fine.
Corey, I agree with you. I like what Mr. Ray said in the comments. He's like, he's 6'7" plus wingspan, good size frame, legitimately good athlete. He has a chance to at least be a passable defender. I think we're saying the same thing. Good job, dude. I think that's exactly what we're saying. I think he's going to be passable because, as you mentioned, Corey, his physical attributes kind of give him some leeway, give him a little bit of cushion to a little margin for error. So I'm right there with you, man. I think with him, it won't be his marquee skill, won't be maybe even like his first 3 best skills, but you can figure it out. I'm still like mind blown thinking about him on the Thunder and what he can offer that team. Not that the Thunder are like struggling offensively by any means, but you can add another shooter on that team. That wouldn't hurt. And at his size, you just continue to add more guys, and he could handle the ball. We know the Thunder like big guys who can handle the ball and shoot a little bit. So that's a really interesting fit. And then with Orlando, I mean, all the defensive cover that team offers. I'm a little heartbroken that you brought up Orlando because I'm still holding on to my Jet Howard stock, but hey, they could play together.
As you should.
Figure it out.
Of course. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, even I think some people might say it's early. You put him in Memphis. That'd be a great situation for him. He can, do a lot for that offense. And then you have Triple J backing him up there. I mean, San Antonio, Wemby has been doing absolutely freakish stuff, right? Like if they took him with their second pick, you know, you got like one of your point guards or whatever with the first one, you get him with the second one, then you have Wemby, maybe Devin Vassell turns on the defense, you know, more than he has been, you know, trying to balance between doing that and scoring.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good landing spots for Dalton, even earlier in the draft. But you know, look, put him, you know, I think in a lot of different spots, and he'd thrive. If you think he's going to be a guy who isn't taken in the lottery, I mean, that Knicks pick, that'd be pretty nice, right? You know, Knicks have the kind of defensive infrastructure to kind of, you know, do well with him. So, I mean, you know, if he fell to 18, and that's where Philly is right now, you get Embiid back, right, next year. Like there's a lot of ways that you can, in a lot of situations that'll be good for Dalton because he's going to offer so much on offense.
I agree. And also, like, we value him top 10, but Corey, who knows, right? Things can happen. Maybe there's, who knows, NBA teams just don't see it the way that we do. I don't know. Maybe he ends up late lottery, teens, early 20s, and things get really, really interesting with him. But he's a lot of fun to watch, man. This has been a lot of fun talking about Dalton Knecht.
Absolutely. So if you're buying stock in Dalton Knecht, who may you have bought stock in previously?
Okay, I've got two guys on my list. I actually didn't go 90s with this one. The first guy is, some of you might be like, oh, yeah, you know, they both went to Tennessee, whatever. Some of you guys are going to hate him because of, you know, maybe his career didn't turn out. Well, but okay. So the guy I'm talking about is Tobias Harris. He's had a good career. Tobias Harris signed a max contract. Ryan Russillo had that running joke for a long time where he's like, oh, Philly has Tobias Harris, like as a joke, right? But with Knecht, it's like Tobias Harris played 1 year at Tennessee, right? And he's had a really successful NBA career. He's been on, you know, really good playoff contending teams. As I mentioned, signed a max contract, a guy who's made a ton of money, put up good numbers, has been looked upon as like a number 2, number 3 option. I can see Dalton being that type of guy. I'm not saying their games are like a 1-for-1. Obviously, I think, well, I mean, Tobias has really made himself into a strong outside shooter. That's a lot of his value now. Obviously, there are parts of his game where, yeah, he can disappear a little bit, isn't super aggressive, but Dalton will probably fill that gap. And if he can have that type of career where he plays a long time, plays on a lot of contending teams, and makes a ton of money, that's a pretty great career. The other guy that I had in mind was actually Bojan Bogdanovic. I'm just thinking, you know, bigger dudes can shoot it, can handle the rock a little bit, can, you know, make some plays for you. Obviously, you're not going to give Bojan a ton of possessions creating for you, but in a pinch, he is a guy who can take a guy into the mid post, back him down, hit a little fade away, can pass a little bit. So I thought of those two guys in terms of his outlook. And if you were to say, hey, you can get Tobias Harris or Bojan Bogdanovic in this draft, in this class, that's a top 10 pick, in my opinion.
Certainly. I like both of those names a lot. Bogdanovic is a good one. I think, you know, stylistically, they share, you know, a ton of similar. He's putting up 20 a game. He's a 20-point per game scorer in the NBA. Like, it's nothing to sneeze at, right? I think if you were looking for like a low-end outcome for what he is, like, I don't see how he doesn't at least figure out a way to be as productive as Max Strus. And like, I don't know, what did he sign for this year? Like 60 million?
Yeah.
Like 64 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Again, it sounds like blasphemy, not a 1-for-1 comp. Let's be clear about that. I think he's got a little bit of Booker in his game.
I've been waiting for this. I love it, dude. Go off. Man.
Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of D-Book in his game, especially when he gets in the mid-range, man. Like when he gets in that little mid-post area and he turns over his shoulder and shoots over a defender. I even think sometimes the way he runs a pick and roll, he snakes it a little bit. He'll get a guy on his hip like he does. It's not 1-for-1, but like Booker is a guy who can come off movement and shoot it. You know, he's a guy who can create his own shot a little bit. And I think that aspect of his game, well, Booker can really do it. And but with Knecht, I think, you know, he doesn't have quite the creative handle that right. Booker has kind of worked at for himself. But I mean, who's to say that Dalton doesn't keep getting better and like, get a handle where he can create for himself at a really high clip. And then there's also like a Gordon Hayward path. I don't think Gordon Hayward in Utah necessarily, because I think way better playmaker. So is Devin Booker. Devin Booker's turned himself into a really good playmaker too. But yeah, some Gordon Hayward, some Gordon Hayward maybe do his game too. But just guys that are good at basketball. And I don't know how he doesn't become at least as productive as Max Strus. So if that's, to me, is what I think, his downside probably is, it's a guy who you should probably take pretty high in the draft.
Yeah, Corey. I mean, you told me the Booker thing a couple days ago. I was really confused. I didn't know if we were talking about the same player or whatever. But then I thought about it because it was in my realm of possibilities. And then I was watching the tape again. I was like, no, I kind of get it. I kind of get what you're saying, because obviously we're never saying one for one. And you're saying there are elements of Devin Booker. I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, dude, especially in the mid range, you mentioned it, some of the snaking stuff, but also like when he's taking these shots, some of the body control stuff with him reminds you of Booker. The way that he can fade a little bit either way, his body looks, completely in control on those jumpers. There's just this like assured confidence with him, with how his body looks and moves on some of these shots. So I'm with you, Corey. Obviously, neither of us are saying he's going to have Devin Booker's career or be the player that Devin Booker is, but those elements are there. Obviously, the creation stuff's not there. Booker's playing point for the Suns right now. But, I mean, you get a 6'7" guy with some of the elements of the players that we mentioned. That has to be top 10 in my mind. I'm actually becoming like even more sure of my, having him in my top 10, just because just the names that we rattled off, those are really good players, man. And they're really valuable players, right? We talk about a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic on the Knicks, what the Knicks gave up to get him and how they viewed him, right? We talked about Max Strus, what he's done for that Cleveland team, what he did for the Heat last year. These guys are very valuable players that, make a ton of money in the NBA. And I see the same for Dalton.
Yeah. Kid can hoop. And I'll pull some clips. I've already put together, clips. I'm still pulling more together, but, I'm going to do a prospect chemistry piece. And I think I'm going to do a few guys. So I think Dalton will be in the piece. Mark Sears will be in the piece, and Colin Murray Boyles will be in the piece as well. I think those are the three guys I'm going to focus on. But I pulled some clips that with Book and Dalton that look eerily similar in how they operate in certain situations. So, you'll get them there, and, I'll post them on the internet, social media as well. So, all right, Albert, it's about that time. We're just going to do it for Dalton.
Sure.
I need you to sell me this pen on Tennessee wing Dalton Knecht.
All right, when it comes to Dalton Knecht, the eval is not that complicated. You have a guy who's 6'7", athletic, NBA frame, a guy who's proven on multiple levels that he can put the ball in the basket. He can do it at 3 levels, can pass it a little bit. Won't be the strongest defender, but also who really plays defense in the NBA anymore? Just kidding. But Dalton's a guy that you should feel pretty confident taking in the top 10 in this class, because you know what you're getting with him. It's clear. He's a really strong offensive player with room to grow. Don't worry about the age. Old guys come in and they play well. Why? Because 23 is not old. He can continue to get better. He can continue to work on his game. There's still a lot that he can add. And considering the foundation that he has and that he's going to bring with him into the league, you should take a bet on a guy like that to continue to grow and to get better and to be a really pivotal part of your team's success because of what he offers on that end of the floor. So if you like guys like that, you should grab Dalton Knecht with a lottery pick and feel pretty good about it.
Well said. Dalton is a really good at basketball player. In a draft where there's so much uncertainty in finding good basketball players, he's one of them. So I think this was a really fun episode on two guys that I think share some similarities, some differences, and are some guys that I think are going to have a lot of fans in NBA front offices. And it's going to be interesting to see how high these guys can climb during draft time, because I think the pre-draft process is going to be really fun for both of them. I think, we're going to start hearing some wild stuff about Dalton, about him being in workouts. And I know, these guys going to the combine, like Dalton's the kind of guy that, when he gets to the combine, his measurements come out and all of a sudden he's 6'6", 6'7", and then he's got like, a 7-foot wingspan or something. And all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, like, and people freak out about it. And I think that could, really benefit him. So yeah, this was fun, man.
This is really good. This is really good. And we just want to say, Corey, this cycle's been difficult for us at times with some of these guys, but this was fun. I'm excited for us to do more of these player, like kind of us going back to our roots, right? More of these player specific pods, but this has been really good. Before we wrap, just so you guys know where to find me, I'm at Alberto Gim on Twitter is where you can find me. On Instagram, I'm at GTGNBA. As always, I'm wearing today. What am I wearing today? I'm wearing this quarter button top from A Bit New York, Kevin Park, who styles me for these pods, if you can believe it. It's been a really cool partnership working with him, and we have some cool collab stuff we've been thinking about that we want to do, which could be really fun. But if you like any of this stuff, please check out A Bit NYC is where you can find me and where you can find the stuff that I wear.
Absolutely. You're always looking fly. Shout out to everybody that has been watching us, live over on YouTube and on Twitter. Thank you for everybody participating in the chat. Shout out to Mr. Ray, Jerry, Gregory, Castillo, Dirty Dancer, Mr. Jones, Mr. Ray, everybody else who's been following along, commenting. You guys are the best. You make these shows a lot of fun. And, we'll be back next week with some more prospects. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the draft cycle, man. You can follow me at Corey Tulaba. I'll have a piece up. If you're watching this live, it'll be up tomorrow morning at NoCeilingsNBA.com. I wrote about Nick Clifford. And if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, it'll be up this morning. So make sure you head to NoCeilingsNBA.com, subscribe, make sure that you subscribe the YouTube channel, share, review, rate the podcast on whatever podcast feed you listen to. And until next time, we are out. Peace.
Peace.